Hello everyone! Welcome to On the Fly with Selene Kempton. I am gonna go get our video in theory. Let's see. Oh, when you're here, just say hello. I'm gonna do a quick, it looks like something. That's a little better, isn't it? It's so funny. Like I always check my camera before I go live, but sometimes, you know. Okay, so I'm not popping up here. So today I had a question from Debbie Cox. Hey, Judy. And Debbie was asking me the difference between markers and markers. So I got a whole bunch of product out, and I'm going to kind of start by showing you what goes with what. Hey, Vicki. Hi, Mary Ellen. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on. It's so good to see you. I'm going to share this into our creative group so everybody over there can find me. And yeah, so the big takeaway to start, I'm just going to answer the question. These are classic markers. Debbie, oh hi Debbie, this is good that Debbie's here. So classic markers have the same ink concentration, the same ink, the water-based ink as our ink pads. So because Debbie is a team member, and she was asking me on our team page about these in colors, because as demonstrators we can pre-order them. It's one of the perks of being a demonstrator. She was kind of trying to decide which ones to order and why. So this can translate to any of our current catalog markers. So these are called in the catalog Stampin' Right markers, and they are $15 for a package of 5, or $30 if you're buying one of the 10 packs. And they are equal to water-based ink, such as an ink pad like this. So whether you ink up your stamp with a marker or an ink pad, it doesn't matter. It's the same ink. There are methods, because if you're inking up photopolymer, it gets a little tricky. I have a method that I go over the photopolymer twice with the marker to get the marker to take. So I thought that to start, we would flip the camera and jump right into answering the question. And moreover, I'm going to teach you what to use with which marker. So for example, Stays On is alcohol-based, and blends are alcohol-based. You don't want to mix your alcohols. So when I'm using Stays On, I use a water-based marker. And when I'm planning to use my blends, I use Memento, or I can even use the classic ink pads, because they don't talk to each other. This is alcohol. So as long as you don't put your alcohols together, it's a good lesson in life in general. You never want to mix your alcohols. You'll be in good shape. So I'll do a visual of that when we flip the camera. So let's just do that to start off, because I prefer that anyway. We'll shoot right at the we'll shoot right at the table and we'll show you. Okay. So here we go. And then I'll have to kind of start to monitor on my computer so I can see your comments. Hey, Debbie Bacon. Oh, Barbara from Connecticut. So you're a neighbor. I'm from Mass. I'm not that far. Hey, I'm going to move the table a little bit so that we can get a better view of the work area. I'm trying to see where the table ends. Okay. Here we go. Everybody can see okay? We all good? All right. So these are the new in color blends markers. So Debbie Cox, this is getting away from your answer right away. But when I'm coloring with these, they're alcohol-based markers. They cost a little bit more. They're $9 for a package of 2, but they're meant to be blended together. So we'll start with that, and I'm just going to take a scrap piece of paper, And we'll start with this soft succulent color. And for each of the blends markers, you get a dark and a light, and they are meant to be blended together. So what you can do is you can start with the dark or you can start with the light. There's no method. So I'm not like saying you have to start with the dark, but I am here to show you that they blend together. And then you can go into the dark and pull it right out into the light and blend them together. So the idea is to blend, okay? So you can see the difference between the dark and the light, and that I pulled some of the dark into the light, and now I can even pull a little bit more light out and just go right back through. It's fine. Okay. And once you start there, you can even go back with the dark marker and make the dark a little darker. But what I try to do is blend to the point where I don't end up with a line. So I don't need to blend it all the way through again, but I do like to. So I went back to forth. So you can see dark to light and kind of an ombre look thing going on there, right? So let's go into this color. And this is, hang on, I can't get the package open. Again, brand new blends. This is exciting. This is Pale Papaya, and that was Soft Succulent. These are brand new in colors that are coming out on May 4th. If you're a demonstrator, you can pre-order these now. And if you're not a demonstrator and you decide to pick up a starter kit with me or your local demonstrator, the kits are $99 and you pick out $125, and you can pre-order from your starter kit, which is pretty cool. All right, so hang on, So I started with the dark. I went right into the dark and pulled it into the light. So now you see a real big difference in that gradation, right? Okay, so here's the next one. Let's see. I'm not seeing your comments, so I gotta big difference blow up in that gradation, right? Next one. I want to be quiet over there. Here we go. Anybody else hate the sound of their own voice? I do. Okay. Polished pink. I even sing, which is funny. Like, I love to sing, but I don't like to listen to the recordings back. It's not my thing. So I'm going to take the dark, and then I'm going to take the light and go, while it's wet, I'm going to pull it right into the light. And you see we've got like a little pattern going on here. And now I'm taking the light and I'm pulling it backwards a little and forwards. And I just don't like any lines. So I'm going to pull the line out and then make it a little lighter over there. Okay. So I don't mess up my order here. Okay, then we've got this gorgeous new purple. I think it pulls a little pink. I mean, it doesn't pull that pink, but it has like pink tones in it for me. Fresh Freesia. And again, I'm going to use the back side of this and start with the dark. See the pink? Well, I mean, I'm blending, but still, it does pull a tiny bit pink to me. And then go into the dark and pull it out and go through that dark line. Booyah. Blend, blend, blend. Okay. And no matter what colors you choose in the blends, and we have a whole bunch available, you don't want to be without this guy, and I'll explain that in 1 second. This is the darkest color ever. It looks black sometimes on camera, but it is the most gorgeous green. I think I was telling you guys last week, it's the color that I really would love to have had my bridesmaid colors. I wanted this like midnight green, and I ended up with midnight blue because the green that they had in the shop didn't look good on the girls, and I'm not doing that to anybody. I wanted to make sure that they could actually have a dress that they could wear again. And it was beautiful midnight blue, and they all could wear it to holiday parties after. So I was excited about that. But every bride wants to do that, I think. Okay, so then remember I was telling you about the magic? This is the most important thing. If you're going to order blends, you need this, because this is the color lifter. And I thought it was easier just to do this so you could see. Now, it's gonna stay wet for a minute, but I want you to see what it does. Oh, and look, it did transfer a little. That's interesting. That's the first time that's happened, but that's with that dark green. Woo. So this is good for a couple of things. If you want to make a highlight, you're coloring a balloon. Yeah, it's Cheryl's pink. That's right. Cheryl Davis pink. You're coloring a balloon and you want to make a highlight mark. So let's say here's our balloon, right? And we've got like a dark area and we've got like a light area. And then, I know it doesn't look like a balloon yet, it will. And then we're gonna make the shape of the balloon, right? Boop, boop, boop. Obviously I don't have a balloon stamp right here, but that's okay. So we can, now that I have that dark on the bottom and on the top, I can create my light mark in the middle, and it would be, did you know that it's impossible for the human hand to draw a straight line? It's definitely easier if I was sketching to sketch this with a pencil first, but whatever. It's sort of a balloon. And then I can add in a little bit more of that shadow, right? And then pull the dark into the light again. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And now it's looking like one color, but it's not. You get this really cool dark to light thing going on, right? Okay. So I see my light right about there, and booyah, I'm gonna make like this little hash mark, but it doesn't happen super instant. It takes a minute. So it's gonna be wet for a second, and then I'm gonna take it and go again. And if I want to, like, it's starting to turn a little yellow. I don't know if I like that, but it's gonna be, it's gotta be completely dry. Now, it goes through on these. So if you're stamping on a note card and you're using blends, you're gonna have to put a layer so that it doesn't go through to the layer underneath. So that's good advice anyway. And you see how cool this is, that once it's dry, you can see that you can actually have another go and lift again if you want. And it will just lift, 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 lift. So that's the blends marker, right? And I'm scribbling on the side because it did pick up the green, which I thought is interesting. It usually disappears right on this tip. So it's not really an eraser, but it lifts the color out so that you can make variations and you can determine where you want your color to land. And that balloon's looking pretty cool with no lines, right? Okay. All right, so we're gonna stick those to the side for a second. And by the way, if I'm gonna stamp in black, I'm gonna use Memento with those, because if I use Stays On, I would be mixing alcohols and that could wind up with a headache. So I don't wanna mix my alcohols. But I can also remind you, and you can take a screenshot if you're watching this like later and you get the replay. I'll pause for a second right here. Whoop. But you can stamp with this and use this to color it in, and they shouldn't interfere with one another. Like, you shouldn't be able to move the soft succulent with the alcohol markers. At least that's my experience. Now, Wink Estella, we know we put that stuff on everything, but when we're talking about the Stampin' Write markers, they are the first style marker that we used. They use the same ink as the ink pads, okay? So for these, we'll go side by side comparison here. You just get one color, and both markers have a dual tip. So this one's a big brush tip, and then this one is a thin line. So both sides have the thin line, but this thin line is a little bit thinner. These are used to ink up your stamps. So for example, I'm just gonna pull in this stamp set. It's going out. It is my favorite stamp to color with. And it is a photopolymer, which is kind of good that I grabbed a photopolymer, because there's a specific, oh, I want the other one. I love this can. There is something about it. I need a couple blocks. One sec. So there's something about this can that makes me happy. And I went to a friend's retreat. I traveled all the way to North Carolina to support my downline and go to her retreat. And I spent the whole weekend with this stamp set and these markers. And all I did was color. And I had the most glorious time. I had a takeout container, and I used Wink Stella on a takeout container as like my scratch pad, and I was picking up the color from a takeout container from a Chinese food place the whole weekend. So with this, we can stamp it either in a straight ink pad, and then I smushed a little, or you can ink up and stamp with a marker. So this is the side you use to ink up the actual stamps with. But what we found, what I found, is that when Stampin' Up! Started offering the photopolymer, that it made it really difficult for these markers to adhere to the material. Something about the markers and the photopolymer didn't kind of mesh well together. I should have probably cleaned it in between, but that's okay. It's the same color. So I inked up once. This technique came from my downline, Joanne Cardone, by the way. Yeah, that's where I met you too, Shirley. That was the best. What a blessing you have been to me. I love my relationships with my team and with other demonstrators, colleagues all across the globe. I am very lucky and blessed to do this for work. So I inked up. I pretended that I didn't ink up, and I inked up again, and I can treat this like an ink pad. So if you don't have every ink pad color, you can still use it to make stamps, right? You can still use it to stamp your images. Well, the other thing that you can do, let's say, this is perfect. Actually, yeah, it's so funny. This is the stamp set that I used that weekend, and I sat in the corner and colored. It was glorious. I think we all need to be able to just do that once in a while. Look at how, like, loved. This is gonna go in my BOGO probably, but it is so loved. This is the dark green. The new dark green, it's called Evergreen. Actually, I should give you the whole word. And then I'll remember it too, Evening Evergreen. But all you do is, and you can see I'm just kind of swooshing across it, right? And actually, it's really good that it's so stained because you can see where the ink is landing, you know? All right, so then I'm going to pretend that I didn't do it, and I'm going to ink it up again with the marker. So when you're doing it with photopolymer, it's better to go twice. If you're on red rubber, you only need to do it once, and it should be fine. I do this because it really does take... It needs the extra gusto. So let's go with this light green for the other words. So I'm going to pretend I didn't do it again. Same thing all the way around. Notice I have my marker on an angle. I don't want to do this or I'll wear that tip down. When I had classes here at the house, I used to always have separate markers for like my classes and have a set of markers that nobody touched that I use because you know that people do this. All right, so then I'm gonna huff on it. And if I had a mask on, I couldn't do this, but so it's a good thing we're online. And I should have a mat, but I don't. So I'm gonna just, the other thing about photopolymer is sometimes it takes an extra second for the ink to transfer to the paper. So if you find that you're having trouble when you stamp with a photopolymer image, all you need to do is give it a couple of extra seconds to soak into the paper. Okay, so that came out pretty good. And that's for using 2 colors on one stamp. I did the light green for All the Good Things and Simply, and then I did the darker for Thankful. Now you'll also see that in my image, there's a little spottiness on the thankful, on the K. So what I can do is I can use the skinny side of my water-based marker and dot. This is the dot method. I will dot to fill in that color. I don't draw it in, because if I were to draw it in, you'd see the lines and it would look funny. This is just dot, 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 dot until it connects, and it looks pretty good, doesn't it? So if you ever mess up and you're missing like a little section of an image, this is how you fix it. Okay. So there's that. I'm going to bring this guy back in, and I want to look at my bucket here. And this time I'm going to ink it up again twice. So once. And then I'm going to pretend I didn't do it, and I'm going to ink it up again. This time I want to make like a dark line going across that middle section and at the bottom. So I want to make it look like my can has a dark line here. So now I've got my two different colors here and here. Okay, ready? And then I'm going to give it a huff. Let's just go right on top. That'll be easy. And then I can cut it down and we can make a card out of it when we're done. So you can see the difference in the colors, both in the sentiment and on my focal point here. So it's going pretty good so far. So when you're stamping with classic markers, you can definitely still use StazOn, but I prefer Memento for the most part. Like I use the StazOn if I'm going to be getting my paper really wet, but other than that, I tend to stick to Memento, which is lost somewhere on my table. Perfect. All right. So next, I'd like to make a scratch pad, and you can make a scratch pad with your ink pad like this. But if you're traveling, like I did to the Carolinas that time, and I'm going to be ducking into a class that I can only bring so much stuff, I wanted to bring something that I knew was portable. This was absolutely perfect for me to bring a pack of markers, a Wink Estella, some water painters, and a blending brush. So there are several ways you can color with these kind of markers because they're water-based. Anything that you use with your ink pads, you can also use with the water-based markers. So I'm gonna start with the aqua painters, and I do like the little skinny brush. And on either side of these water brushes, there's a push, and the push helps you get the water down into the brush. So we're testing the temperature here. That's funny. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the soft succulent, the lighter green, and start to add some shading where the artist made marks. Because I don't need to be an artist. I did go to art school, and I love art, and I do art, but I don't need to be perfect at it. If I can just pay attention to what the artist did before me, I can end up with a pretty darn cool image. But I want to keep blending until I get the right color, right? So this is getting kind of wet. This is my wet medium. This is one way to color. All right, so now I don't know about you, but on the my favorite watercolor with this type of coloring is actually, well, let me show you the blender pen first. So the blender pen's another way you can color, and you can just pick up the ink and the same thing, but you don't go as far and it doesn't get as wet. So you have to pick it up frequently and use it like a marker. And then when you're done, you use your scratch area to get the ink off your blender pen before you move to the next color. You can pick up the darker color and start this image down here. And it blends pretty good. And it has a Selene solution, and you get 2 tips. And basically, by the time the Selene is gone in the brush, I want new tips. I think they're like $12 for 3 markers, and you get 2 tips each. So 6 tips for $12. It's worth getting new ones for me because I like a nice clean, pointy tip. And again, I'm on an angle here, right? So that's another way you can color. You can use blender pens or aqua painters, whichever one you prefer. And then of course we've got my favorite. Where's Debbie Pranty? She's going to be laughing at me. Yep, Debbie Pranty knows that this was coming, I'm sure. And I'm going to mix Wink Estella with it. Shocker. And come in from the sides and add some sparkle to this can, the rim on my can. Oh my gosh, that's my favorite. And it makes, I don't know what it is about the solution in the Wink Estella, but I love picking up classic ink, whether it comes from an ink pad or the marker, and mixing it. And it's very forgiving. See, there's like a tiny little line there, and you can blend it like magic. So I like the way the can is colored, but I kind of would like it more. So basically, throw away the first 2 ways that I showed you and just use the Wink Estella method because it's the best. I'm just kidding. But it is what I prefer. I'm sure that there's a reason that you'd want a matte, country can. But I think Wink Estella makes everything better. Okay. So this would be easy enough to just cut and throw on a card base, right? All right. I think that about covers it. So like all the classic markers, the Stampin' Right markers, and I call them classic because they are with the classic water-based ink colors. These all go together. And if I were going to use this, you could use StazOn so that your ink won't move when you get your, with an aqua painter, you should really use StazOn. But Memento ink is pretty flexible. You could use both, but just don't go through the black too much because you can move it with the water. It is fade-resistant dye-based ink. But when you're using your alcohol markers, you do not want to use your StazOn because the alcohol will move the alcohol. And that's these markers, and like I said, they're the $9 for the pair, and you get the dark and the light. And let's go back to that sheet again, that contact sheet. So you see the dark into the light and how light it can get and how it looks nice and blendy in the middle. Same with this one. See how like light it can get? I just love the new colors. Wink of Selene. That could be it. It could be my new thing. Yeah. I agree with you, Debbie. I think that's a good idea. Oh my God, that's awesome. All right. So what do you say we try something different? I've never done no line watercoloring, and it looks pretty intriguing to me. And we have this succulent stamp set that I have yet to put ink on. So why don't we try it with that? Again, this Country Home stamp set is going out, and you only have a couple weeks to get it. And paired with the new in colors, it's fantastic. All right, I need a bigger block. I'm not sure where I'm going with this yet, so I'm going to try stamping this on both the soft succulent color and the white. Oh, it's so pretty. I can't wait to make a card out of that. All right, here we go. So I'm going to bring in the soft succulent ink pad. And again, isn't it best when we try new stuff live? If I'm doing this wrong, please help me because I've never done it before. Oh, I haven't put ink on that before. What was I waiting for? My goodness. Right? Succulents on succulent paper with succulent ink. I'm making myself laugh over here. Okay, So I was thinking we started with a classic ink pad, and I could very well just pick up and use Wink of Stella, but I really am digging the way the blends are looking here. So I think what I'm gonna do is kind of build a flower. And maybe we'll, I don't know, hopefully I don't make a mess. Like I said, I'm a little shy. But let's start with adding some dark spots here. So blends dry really fast, and they're intended to make that light to dark thing. So I'm gonna start with just a couple sections of this evergreen, the evening evergreen. And then while it's still wet, I'm gonna come in and go right into the evergreen with the succulent marker. And is that the dark one? Yeah, that's the dark one. I think I really want like a contrast. So I'm gonna go to the lighter one. So this is the light. I started with the dark one, but I think I wanna come here. So I want there to be like real blendy stuff going on. And I am treating each of these leaves like its own pool, its own little section. And just grabbing that dark and pulling it out. And see that one, you can see it's starting to dry. So maybe I should do like just a few next time. So I'll come back, and to get this to blend a little better, I'm gonna add some of the dark succulent in between. And while it's wet, pull it out. Okay. So then for good measure, you see that line where the flower kind of folded over on this one? I'm gonna pull some lifter right in between that line and try and get a little bit of highlight going. And I won't know exactly where it sits until it dries. So I'm gonna give that a, ooh, that looks pretty. All right, hang on, you're gonna need a close-up of that. Ready? So you can start with one color on one flower, and then you could bring in another color. So let's move over to the papaya, and we'll start with the dark again. My friend Karen has a succulent like garden in her front window, so when I go to drop her orders, I see all of her succulent plants in her window. She has like it must be really pretty on the inside with the light coming through the window with all those colors. But succulents can come in lots of different colors. I did an internet search yesterday thinking that I might play with this, but I didn't know what the topic was going to be until Debbie Cox said, hey, what are these markers and how do I use them? So thank you, Debbie. And if anybody ever has questions like that, it really helps me with content for you guys. So pull it out. And then again, so I won't like bore you and color the whole thing. I will show the completed card later on so that like you can see, because I'm going to just take my time, and I'm going to take an afternoon break and a cup of coffee, and I am going to color. I want Cheryl Pink next. Cheryl Davis Pink. And so it would be no line if I stamped it with a lighter color, but I was thinking that the succulent green would have been light enough, but oh, I want this side lays down more ink, and it's kind of, it keeps the ink more wet, so that when you go in, you can pull out the dark easier. And you could start with the light and then add the dark and then blend again. There's no like set in stone method. There's no right way. There's no Selene way, you know, that it has to be done my way. It's whatever works for you. So you can see that you want some darker ink in an area after you start setting up. and go back. So we did markers all different ways. We did the alcohol markers, which we know not to use with StazOn. And we did the classic markers. But oh, these colors together are so stunning. Aren't they fun? I can't wait to build this and finish it so you can see. But I'm just gonna keep going with the dark, dark. So that's 4 this time. And then now I'm gonna do the dark soft succulent to blend that a little bit. And then I'll do the light soft succulent and see where we land. Pull the dark right into the light. That's where all the dark stuff belongs, right out in the open. There you go. It's my philosophy for the day. And blend, blend, blend. Get rid of those lines. Unless you like lines, and then keep them. I'm gonna go back over that one fold over because I thought it was a really cool line. And then some right there, and some highlight right here. And that's not quite blended, so I'm gonna hit it with the, and then I gotta leave that for a second. Same thing here, I wanna add a little highlight. So the highlight doesn't show up right away. You gotta wait for it for a second, but now look at it go. See, once it dries, it brightens it right up. All right, guys, do you have questions? Because I'll just sit here and color all day. Oh, we didn't try it on this, did we? So let's try it on this. Let's do the same exact thing. We're gonna do the dark. This is the light evening evergreen. Wow, okay, so I've been working with the light evening evergreen. I didn't read it. That's when you're supposed to say, I didn't know you could read. And then the dark soft succulent. Say that 5 times fast. This one is pulling in the color more. Interesting. And then I'm going to the light one. I might need more lifter here. This one is like true no line watercolor. Wow. Like, because you can't see the line when I'm done. So this one I'd be almost tempted to start with the light one and then pull in a little dark and then do the blendy. So like, that's what I mean. There's no right or wrong. It's just a matter of when you start, what's going on with your marker. It's so fun though. All right, so talk to me. Do you have any other questions about markers? Yes, I will definitely post the finished cards. This one, yeah, and like I said, this was just us like doing the contact sheet in the beginning so I could show you the difference with the color lifter. And then we did the water-based marker and all of the coloring with Wink of Stella. And I like my can now that it has Wink of Stella. And I think maybe just a little ribbon or a bow right there in the darker green. But we did inking up markers with 2 different colors with the classic markers, which is a great way to use markers, and how to use them with photopolymer versus the red rubber, which just adheres with these markers. So you could technically try to color the back of a marker, the back of a stamp with this one, but it's not as they are intended. If you want to color the stamps so that you end up with 2 colors, you're better off using the Stampin' Right markers. But I think that was everything. Yeah, I think that there are no more questions. I'm going to flip the camera for a second and just say how much I appreciate all of you. And thank you very much for tuning in. I got somebody messaging me, so the screen just went completely blank. Thank you very much for stopping by today, and thanks for the questions. Keep them coming. And like I said, when I finish this, I will definitely post the finished card. It is so pretty. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day. I'll see you next week at 3.